I'm going to walk you through how I built an agent with Copilot Studio, share several techniques, and talk you through my thought process along the way. I know folks are really hungry to level up in Copilot Studio and see real examples, and I think that this agent does just that. This agent takes full advantage of generative orchestration mode over the course of a multi-turn conversation. So not everything is pre-programmed. The agent will help decide what to do and not always rely upon hard-coded logic or messages. And we're also going to use variables to store information that helps the agent keep track of state along the way. Keeps track of state to help out. So let's take a look at this agent that I've built. This agent is called the Find Meeting Times agent, and this agent can help users find available meeting times for a list of specified attendees. In the instructions here, you can see it's sectioned off into two parts: general instructions and steps to find meeting times for attendees. Steps to find meeting times for attendees has a series of steps in sequential order that the agent should follow. Then we also have the general instructions that the agent should just always follow at every step. To understand what this agent is doing, let's take a look at the steps to find meeting times for attendees. So the first thing that this agent is going to do is welcome the user and say, hey, who would you like to add to your meeting? Who would you like to find meeting times for? It's going to gather the attendees' information. Then it's going to confirm that attendees list. It's going to make sure that those people that were mentioned in the chat window are actually real people. It's going to validate them, give the user the opportunity to make changes, and then confirm with the user that these are the people they actually want to bring into the meeting. After that, the agent will ask, hey, what date range do you want to search for meeting times within? And then it'll go off and perform that search. Then once that's done, the agent is going to display the meeting times back to the user in their own time zone. And if the user wants to make any changes after that, whether adding or removing more people, changing the meeting times, they can go off in any direction that they want. Or they can start over and find the next meeting. So that's what these instructions are describing to the agent. Up in our general instructions here, there's a couple of things we want to make sure that the agent is doing at all turns of the conversation. Whenever the user mentions a year, well, we want to make sure that it's the current year. Okay, I think that's a pretty safe assumption. Any dates that it displays back to the user have to be in the user's own time zone. Remember, we're not hard coding all of the messages here. The agent and the orchestrator is going to do some of the work. And finally, we want our agent to stay on topic. If the user asks the agent to do something else, it shouldn't let them, right? There's a purpose for this agent. It's to help find meeting times. And that's all we want it to do. Great. So those are the agent instructions. Let's take a look at the topics that we've got set up here. So for this agent, we've got 6 custom topics that we're going to walk through. And we've also got several system topics. System topics are topics that come baked into the agent when it's created. The first thing that you'll notice is that some of these system topics are actually turned off. Okay? End of conversation, escalate, fallback, and a couple more are turned off. And that's because over the course of a multi-turn conversation, I found that the agent can get confused and try and exit the conversation early. So by turning off some of these topics, that's what we're trying to prevent. So by turning off some of these system topics, that's what we're trying to prevent. The first topic that we'll take a look at is the conversation start. That makes sense, right? When the agent starts, it actually opens up this conversation start topic, and that's what you see in the chat window. So if I go over here to the test window, we can see some messages that say, hello, I'm the meeting scheduler agent and I can help you find meetings. Who would you like to invite? And in the conversation start topic, that's just what we have. So we'll scroll down here to the message nodes, and there you go. Exactly the same messages. So the agent starts off by describing who am I and what can I do? And then the next thing that's really important is it prompts the user to do something. It prompts the user to do something. Because the user might not know what to do next, right? The user might have absolutely no idea. So it's important in your conversational design to tell the user what action to do next. The other thing you'll notice in this conversation start topic is this set variable value node. And here we're setting a variable called required attendees. This is a table type of variable that is going to track all of the people that we're going to invite to our meeting. Remember, I said that we're going to use variables to store information about the state of the conversation. But why are we doing something here in the conversation start? Well, I'll tell you about that. This is a table type variable, and the table type variable starts off with nothing in it, no users added. So at the start of the conversation, we need to have an empty table startup. So we put this formula, this variable, we set it in the conversation start. Now this is a really interesting formula right here, an interesting power effects formula. Here you can see we're setting up a table with two properties in each record, a name and an email, Matthew Devaney and mdevaney@company.com. But then we use the first n function and we're saying, get the first 0 records in this table. Well, why the heck are we doing that? Well, what this allows us to do is define the formula of the table and then remove any records from it. So you have a blank table, but the agent knows what the schema, what the structure of that table should be. Pretty handy technique. So that's our conversation start topic. And again, on the right-hand side, you can see everything that's going on with the conversation start right there. The next thing that this agent wants us to do is to invite some attendees to the meeting. So let's go ahead and do that. I've got a couple people in mind. I'm going to invite Matthew, Mary, and Sarah. When I send this message, let's take a look at what happens. So what the agent does is it processes all of the names inside of that message, and the orchestrator has decided to call several custom topics here. It's decided to call the resolve username to valid email topic, and not just once, it's decided to call it 3 times, once for Matthew, once for Mary, and once for Sarah. And that goes into another topic called confirm a meeting attendees list. Okay, well, let's take a look at that custom topic called resolve username to valid email to understand what's going on here. So I'll go to my topics and I'll go to resolve username to valid email. So the purpose of this topic is to take the user's display name as an input and find their valid email address, because we need their email address to send a meeting invite to them. And I say this in kind of a fancy way. I want the agent to resolve their display name to an email address. Let's start off by taking a look at the details for this topic. So in the topic details, I've defined an input called var search username. It's an input variable, and it's a string type input variable that the agent is going to dynamically decide to fill with the best option. So you saw a moment ago how the agent decided to run this topic 3 times. It decided it needed to run it 3 times, and it also decided that I need to run it once with Matthew as the search username variable, once with Mary, and once with Sarah. And another thing that we've done to help it along here is chosen to have the variable identify as a person name. Okay? So in these input variables, we can actually choose entity types, and that will prevent the topic from getting loaded with irrelevant or garbage information. So if I put in something like an age, an address, something else, the topic input variable is not going to take it there. It also helps to put in a description here too. Here we have a description that says the display name of a user in Office 365, which is typically the first and last name. That makes sense, right? That's what we want to search, a first and last name, typically. But it doesn't have to be that. We could put a last name or a first name, doesn't matter. Let's take a look at the rest of this topic. So from there, we've got the search terms. And the next action that we want to run is an Office 365 users search for users action. And it takes that input variable as the search term and outputs a table of results. Now, it could be one result, it could be many people, or it could be nobody if we put in a name that doesn't actually exist inside of our tenant, inside of our Office 365. After we've found that list of search results, we have some good conditional logic. We have some conditional logic branching off here. If the search users action found some values, then we want to add those values to the table of required attendees. And we do so with this modify items in a list action. Let's take a look at the properties here. And here you can see we have our global variable. We are adding an item. And then from that list of search results, we're taking the first search results, name and email. We're taking the top search results, name and email. Now, you might say, well, what if I just put in the name John Smith? Very common name. And what if it comes back with multiple people? Well, in this example, we haven't quite built that out here. I wanted to keep this example simple, so it could be more easily explained. But disambiguation, deciding which of these people to take in the search results, is definitely something that you can build into the agent at a later time. So we take the first results, name and email, and we add a new record into that table. Then, at the end of this topic, we update a global variable called isAttendeesList updated. IsAttendeesList updated. And I've put a description here. It says that this variable tracks whether the attendees list was updated and whether the attendees list must be confirmed. So remember, first we're taking the names of the agents, the names of the people we want to attend our meeting, and then we're going to confirm them, right? We're going to confirm that list. And keeping track of whether the attendees list was updated is something that helps prevent that confirm topic from being fired off too early. And you're going to see that in the next topic that we take a look at. You'll notice that we don't end this off with a message. We don't end this topic off with a message right here because we want the agent to choose the next topic to run or output a message for itself, right? We wanted to rely more on generative orchestration. That's a design choice. And also notice that in this conditional branch, if the agent can't find anything, there's no actions here. And what would happen is the orchestrator would say, sorry, we couldn't find the person that you were looking for, and it might prompt you to do it again. Once again, this is the orchestrator deciding what to do. We don't have to pre-program everything. So let's flip back to our resolve topics here on the activity map. And we're going to look at the confirm meeting attendees list topic next. But just one more thing I want to point out to you is that By setting up the agent in this way, I don't have to ask the user to provide the list of attendees in a particular structure. I don't have to say comma separated, space separated, a list. The orchestrator is smart enough to go ahead and pick that out. And this also solves a problem with question nodes where you say giving the names of the people or the name of the person you want to do something with, but it can't actually detect multiple entities. It can only detect a single entity. And so how we've gotten around this problem is that we have designed a single topic that's going to detect usernames and run more than once. Pretty smart, right? That's a little bit more of an advanced technique. So the next thing that the orchestrator decides to do is confirm the meeting attendees list. And that's what we told to do it inside of the instructions after usernames have been resolved, after that topic's been run. So let's take a look at how that topic is set up. So in this topic, it triggers when the user is supposed to confirm the meeting attendees list. And let's check out the properties for this trigger. And this is kind of cool. It has a condition on it that says, run this when the global variable called isAttendeesListUpdated is equal to true. Remember, we set that in the last topic there. We set that in the last topic, and it prevents the orchestrator from firing this thing off a little too early. We don't want that to happen. Then we go down here, and I know I skipped a node. We'll come back up to that. Then we want to ask the user a question. We want to say, here's the current list of meeting attendees. Is this the complete list of people that you wanted to invite? Yes or no? And the type of identifying entity options that we've decided to put here are yes or no, so that the user has to press yes or no buttons to confirm what the meeting attendees. That's a little helpful conversation user experience trick there. If you already know the types of answers that the user should give, it's fairly structured, just let them click a button, right? You don't always want people to be typing stuff. If it's easy as clicking a button, just let them do that. But the other cool thing about this message is that it's using a bulleted list, okay? And we know we can click on this button to create a bulleted list, but what if we have several people inside of a table variable? What if we need to create that on the fly? How do we do that? Well, I've set up this variable called formatted attendees list. And if we take a look at the formula here, what we're doing is using HTML tags to show formatted text. Now, if you're not familiar with HTML, really got to go look this stuff up, but let's just talk through it. So the UL tag right here means unordered list. It signals that we're going to start creating an unordered list with HTML. And then with the concat function, we loop through all of the records in the required attendees table. Remember, there's 3 of them. There's 3. And for each bulleted item in that list, we put them inside of li or list tags. And here you can see we have the name and the email of the person. So it creates a bulleted list item for each of those 3 people. Then it closes the list and also puts a line break right here to make sure that we have a little bit of space between the bulleted list and the question right here. Just a little bit better for formatting. Now, I could have done that all inside the question node right here, but I like to kind of separate the logic out so that it's easier to read and to understand. So let's see what happens next. Let's see what happens after we click yes or no on that attendees list. So if the user says, yeah, that's all the people I wanted to invite to my meeting, the next thing that happens is a variable called isAttendeesListUpdated gets set to false. And remember, that was the one we were just talking about to confirm whether this topic needed to run. So we set that back to false so it can run again at some point, or so this doesn't, so this doesn't like re-trigger unnecessarily. And then the conversation gets redirected into the find meeting times topic. We're going to take a look at that in just a moment. Now, if you say no, you'll notice that there's no messages here, right? There's no actions, no notes, no messages. What does it do? Let's take a look. Let's go and press this button. So if I do that, well, there's no new activity on the map here. So the agent didn't choose a new topic, tool, or knowledge to use. It went based on its own instructions and came up with this message. It said, please provide the names of the attendees you would like to add or remove from the list. So remove is another topic that we have here. Let's see. Let's remove Sarah Green from the list. So we'll remove Sarah Green. And by the way, I don't need to be perfect about how I write her name. I could have said Sarah, I could have said Green. The agent is pretty smart about picking that stuff up. But now we have another topic in the mix here, and we have the remove user from attendees list topic. That's a custom topic. And now it's reconfirming again, right? Exactly what we want it to do. Let's take a look at the remove user from attendees list topic. And you might have guessed what this topic does. It removes the user from the meeting attendees list, but how does it do it? How does it do it? Well, just like the topic to add a user, we have an input variable here. We have an input variable called remove attendee. It stores that user's name, Sarah Green. The agent figured out what part of this text to put in there. And it did so because I identified it as a string type variable and a person name. A string type variable and a person name. Agents are very smart. And this also gives us a little bit of flexibility because if I wanted to remove Sarah and Mary, this topic could run twice, right? We're sidestepping that issue we have with question nodes where it can only detect one entity. That's why we built it this way. Let's take a look at all of the nodes we have in this conversation. So first thing I'll do is I'll do a quick check to see if that name that was put in, Sarah Green, is in the variable that tracks the current list of users. And we have it right here. So writing a little bit of power effects, we take a look at the global variable of required attendees. We do a match on the name. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect because even if you say Green or if you just say Sarah, the agent resolves that to the full name and then it tries to find it here. Then if it's not blank, and I know it's kind of confusing, I really just mean if that exists, then it's going to set the variable is name in attendees list to true. And here's where we do a little bit of like logical branching. Okay, put a condition in here. So when that name is set to true, we're going to update this list here. We're going to update the required attendees table rather to remove that person. And the code that I have written is a filter function. So start off by taking the entire list of attendees and then just return back all the people who aren't Sarah Green. That makes sense. I could have also done a drop a person from a table variable action. No problem. There's many ways you can do this. Then after that's done, since we've added somebody new to the attendees list, or the attendees list has changed, we're going to set this global variable called isAttendeesListUpdated to true once again. Now what happens if we couldn't find that person in the list? Well, we send a message. We send a message back that says this person was removed from the attendees list. That's not correct. I think here what we want to say is this person could not be found in the attendees list. Just make a little bit of a change on the fly there. Absolutely no problem. So we will send a message back. We will actually write that message and not rely on the orchestrator to do it. Okay, so now we've seen the remove user from attendees list action from top to bottom and confirming the people in the meeting. So that's a few topics down. Now let's go back to our activity map. Let's start this again from scratch here because I want to use 3 people inside of my example. Matthew, Mary, and Sarah Green. So it's going to do this over again. It's going to ask for the confirmation. And here I'm going to click yes because I want all of these people to come to my meeting. Now, inside of the confirm meeting attendees list topic, there was a redirect to another topic. So you won't see that topic on the activity map right there, but we are running it. And it did come up here with an adaptive card to ask a question to the user. What date range do you want to search and how many minutes is the meeting? So let's do a search. Yeah, I think we can click leave there. Let's do a search on the 2nd to the 3rd. And let's make this a 60-minute meeting. 1 full hour. Ah, there you go. That's perfect. So it came back with the times where we could all meet over the course of 2 days. And the other cool thing that happened was it came back in my time zone, which is UTC -5. So let's look into how that works. Here we'll go to topics. Remember that we were on the confirm meeting attendees list topic. And then we did a redirect right here. Okay, so here's the find meeting times topic, and it triggered from a redirect. And inside of the trigger, let's see if we've got anything going on here as well. So, yes, we have the global is attendees list confirmed variable. So this topic only runs after the attendees list has been confirmed. And this is really handy because make sure, once again, that this topic doesn't trigger early. And it's going to be possible to re-trigger it after we found the initial meeting times if we want to add new attendees or change the time. Okay. Then we also have this description here. This topic finds available meeting times for attendees after the attendees list is confirmed. Next up, adaptive card. So there's more than one thing we want to more than one piece of information we want to get from the user, and we don't want them to do it slowly over the course of multiple conversation turns. We don't want the agent to say, give me the start date, then give me the end date, then give me the meeting time duration, because that's slow. Users don't like that. And we also have less control over whether those input types are correct, dates and numbers. So a really good way to counter that and provide a good conversational experience is an adaptive card. So for this adaptive card right here, let's take a look at the properties. And this is the schema. This is what I put in to create the adaptive card. And how I generated this was I just typed into ChatGPT, give me an adaptive card that allows me to take a start date and end date. Those are required fields, and also a meeting duration as a number value. And give me the code for that so I can paste it into Power Automate. I said Power Automate because GPT is just more familiar with Power Automate than Copilot Studio. So it did. And then I went and pasted that schema in here. The important thing is you don't want to go to the JSON option. You want to go to formula, because then we can make this card dynamic. We can make its values changed based on variables. Let's take a look at the code. So over here we've got type is adaptive card, version is 1.5, and then the body is all the elements that make up the adaptive card. The first object is a text block. That's our title. It says please specify when to look for available meeting times. Then the second one is our date input for the start date. The important thing here is the type is input.date. This is our label. label is start date with nice capital letters. And then for the value, this is something dynamic. I always want to make sure that the start date defaults to the current day so that the user doesn't start off really far away on the calendar. They've got today's date to kind of keep them grounded. Similar thing happens for the end date here, using the same formula, the today function, and then wrap it in a text. So the format is year dash month dash day, and that's what the adaptive card requires. And then if the user doesn't input any values into these fields, because it's a required field, we show this error message, the end date is required. Pretty straightforward, right? Then for the meeting duration, I decided to leave this as minutes because that's what the find meeting times action requires. We could have done hours here instead, but decided to do minutes. And the default value here is 30, so that's just a hard-coded value. You could put that inside a variable if you want, and once again, this is something that is required. Then at the bottom of the card, we have our spot for actions, and there's only one action on this card. It's just an OK button. We don't need cancel or anything else. Once the user fills in start date, end date, and meeting duration, they just click OK, and then those values that they input into the adaptive card are captured by these variables, end date, meeting duration, and start date. And the way that it knew to do that is through the ID right here. So you'll notice that these ID names are lining up, even with the capitalization. Okay, so we've got our list of required attendees. We've got the start date, we've got the end date. Now it's time to run a connector action. Now it's time to run a tool, actually. And the one that we're going to run is the Outlook 365 Find Meeting Times V2 action. So what it does is it takes all of these variables as inputs and outputs a list of suggested meeting times. Or if it doesn't find anything, empty suggestions reason. Why couldn't we find any meeting times for these people? You'll notice here that I've decided to use a tool instead of a connector. And what do I mean by that? Well, here you have to press plus and you go to add a tool. I could go search find meeting times and use that. Or I could use a tool, which is really just an action loaded in advance. And the reason I decided to do this is because when I use just a connector action, the agents seem to want to fire off this topic twice for some reason. And I'm not really sure why it was doing that, but sometimes agents, well, they have their, they just do what they want, right? I found if I used a tool, the agent was aware that it had already performed this action and didn't need to run the entire topic again. So that's why I did it this way. We'll take a look at the tool setup in a moment. But what I want you to see for now is how I've decided to load these variables in. So let's take a look at each one. So for the required attendees variable, we have our list of required attendees, but it needs to be formatted as a semicolon separated list. So we use the concat function here. We iterate, we loop over those variables and append the emails together in a string. Then for the start date action, I'm going to blow this formula up a little bit. We need to get a date time value as an input. Remember, in the adaptive card, we just had date. So we need to add the hours and the minutes and whatever to it. Not only that, we need to supply this in UTC time, okay? Me sitting here in UTC -5, well, if we put in the current date and time, like that doesn't cut it. We need to actually convert my time to UTC time. So we do that with PowerFX function. So here we have the date add function, and we start with the selected start date, but then we use a function called time zone offset, and it says, okay, we know where you're sitting, Mr. User. We know your local time zone. Here's the adjustment that's needed. Here's the number of minutes difference between your time zone and UTC. And then we make that happen by slapping it inside of the date add function and using the time unit as minutes. Now, if we just added some time to a date, it would come back as a date type variable, which is why I need to use date time value instead. Similarly, for the end parameter, we're doing pretty much the same thing, but we've decided to place the end date variable captured right here. But we also want to add the time 23:59:59, so it's 11 p.m. at night, 59 minutes and 59 seconds. Because when somebody puts in an end date, let's say July 3rd, they really mean the date range should be from 12 o'clock in the morning on July 2nd to 11:59:59 p.m. on July 3rd. So we've got to add a time right here. And then we've got the meeting duration, and that was just selected from the list. So the agent takes all of this stuff, and it outputs a meeting time suggestion. And we do this in a global variable. So by default, it's coming up as a topic variable, but we've switched this to global. We switched this to global because we want the orchestrator to have action to it. Potentially other topics too, but the orchestrator to have action to it. We have this description right here, meeting time suggestions in UTC time zone, and let the agent use it in dynamic chaining. This description is important because the agent might not have the context to know that this action only spits out in UTC time zone. And the instructions that we put together said everything's got to be in the user's local time zone. Remember? So a little bit of extra context for the agent goes a long way in this meeting time suggestions variable. Then the last part of this is we need to calculate the user's current time zone because the agent doesn't know it out of hand. And once again, we have a formula, and we're taking that time zone offset. We're doing some fancy math here based on the current date and time. And then it's going to output something like UTC minus 5 for me. For you, it's going to be different, but here it's going to be UTC minus 5. And we store that in a string type variable. And that's all the agent needs because we've told it in the instructions, take a look at this global variable, right? It is actually a global variable. And this is what the time code is. The variable description here is adjustment for current user's time zone in hours. Now you'll notice that at the end of this topic, we haven't defined any messages, but yet the agent spits out a message right here, okay? It did that because the orchestrator knew that after running the meeting topic, what to do. It took a look at the instructions. Let's bounce on over here to the instructions again. And at the end, in the instructions, it says display the meeting time suggestions, present the available meeting times in a bulleted list grouped by meeting date, and sort them. You can see it did that right here, and always display the meeting times in the user's current time zone. And this is something I don't see happen a lot. I don't see a lot of folks using variables inside their instructions, and this is an example of when you want to do that, right? This is an example of when you want to do that. So that was really cool, right? Because the agent came up with that message in the end, and I didn't need to go through the really awful headache of trying to figure out the meeting times in my time zone and also formatting. The agent just did it for me. Now I promised I would show you what that tool setup looks like. And here we just go to tools, find meeting times. I haven't really done anything custom here to this tool in the setup. You can see I've left the inputs alone to dynamically be filled by AI. I didn't even write this description, but I did uncheck this box. It says allow the agent to decide when to use a tool, because we just want to use that inside of the topic. We don't want the agent to call it by itself at any time. So a few more steps to go here, a few more topics to take a look at. You'll notice that here at the end, this message says, would you like to add attendees, change the meeting time, or start over? And that's because in my instructions right here, step 5 says, ask what to do next. So we could come in here and type new attendees. We could change the meeting time, and the orchestrator will figure out what to do. But let's take a look at a new topic here. Let's take a look at the start over topic. I'm going to type in the word start over. You could also type in like restart agent, number of different things. And when I hit start over, it's going to run the restart agent topic. And the agent says, okay, I'm ready to help you with your next meeting search. Who would you like to invite to the meeting? Please provide each attendee's name. So we're going back to the top of that instructions list, right? We're going back to the steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can start this thing all over again. Let's go to topics and take a look at how that was built out. Restart agent. Now there is kind of a system topic to handle this, but I wanted to roll my own because, well, there's some extra things in there I didn't want the agent to potentially do. And I also wanted to add my own custom message for it. So I stole the topic trigger from the reset conversation system topic. And this says the tool can handle queries like this. Let's begin again, start over, start again, restart, new search. So that's how the agent knows when to trigger it. Here we have that message sent that we wanted to send. We clear all the variable values. So this agent used variables to track the state of things throughout, so we don't just rely on the orchestrator. Makes things a little bit more reliable. But now we got to clear them out because we're starting the new conversation. Got to clear them out. And then finally, we end all topics. And this does two things. This tells the orchestrator to quit doing everything you're currently doing, right? Stop generating a plan of actions for me to do. Like this is the final one for now. And it also helps the agent forget all of the context prior in the conversation. So no matter where you're at in the series of things, it's just going to forget everything that happened above that. At least that's what the documentation says. So I'm going to choose to believe it. Let's take a look at two more topics. Maybe three. I forget how many more. There's just a couple more left. Let's do who am I? So for the who am I topic, this is something that I like to add to every agent, and it will allow the user to say, let's just type it in. Who are you? Or ask a question like, what can you do, Mr. Agent? Stuff like that. And there you go. It spits out some helpful information. It says, I'm the meeting scheduler, gives a version number, which is very helpful for debug. It says, I can help you find the available meeting times for a group of attendees. So that's a little bit of direction on what this agent can do. Important in a Microsoft Teams context, right? Because that start conversation topic, doesn't always happen at the start, right? It's an agent that persists through multiple steps. And you can also tell the user what are the commands that are available to do. So if they forget, if they don't know, they haven't had any training, then there it is right there. Let's take a look at one more topic right here. I think this topic is called conversational boosting. Now remember, we didn't want this agent to do anything outside of just helping to schedule. So let's go and try and ask it to do something else and see what happens. We'll say, what is the capital of France? I think it's Paris, but the agent should know that. And here you go. The agent says, unfortunately, I can't offer help for that. Because it's a system topic, it doesn't show up in the activity map. But here we had a general instruction. It says, stay on topic, only find meeting times, potentially restate the agent's previous directions. Didn't quite do that, but it still did its job, not helping the user do something that they weren't supposed to. So that's it. That's the complete agent. There's probably a couple things you want to do from here. One of them being you could add another action to help the user actually go ahead and schedule the meeting. Again, I just wanted to keep this video short as possible. But hope you learned something about generative orchestration and hope you learned several valuable tips along the way. That's it. That's the video.